Rwanda attracts attention because it has, because of the genocide. It's got on the map, unfortunately, because of the genocide, which is probably, arguably, the most efficient genocide in modern history. Up to 800,000, the estimates go up to 1.1 million people were killed in 100 days. There was a kind of a tabula rasa from the start of the genocide, because everything was wiped clean. I was there, my first time doing research in Rwanda was about a month after the genocide had ended, and there were, in many places in the countryside in particular, there were almost no people. And the level of destruction was like nothing I've ever seen. And yet it was a nation, and yet there was a government trying to get things started. So that has been the starting point for, you know, what happens. And then the other reason why there was so much attention paid to it is because so many governments didn't act, as we know, and has been really looked at by so many different governments. And there's been a real, I mean, I think there's been real heartfelt thinking about why that was. And a kind of never again has taken root with regards to the genocide in Rwanda, which I think is a great thing. So what's happened since then is that these two trajectories, these two kinds of themes have risen up that people have commented on. One has to do with seeing Rwanda as a model of development, that democracy has to be tempered and controlled because of in the context of after genocide, and there's still being real threats across the border to the regime and to the government, to the country. So in that context, there has been some really innovative development work that has been led, spearheaded by the president of Rwanda and by his government, which is known to be very against and very disciplined, competent, and corruption is thought to be going down in a significant way. They really do promote private investment. So there are a lot of people who think that Rwanda is not only doing well, given where it started right after the genocide, but is actually a model of development. The other side is takes that idea of the model of development and says, now wait a minute. Before the genocide, the regime in Rwanda, which is the one that inevitably carried out the genocide, or people associated with the government in particular, that was also seen as a model of development before the genocide, and it was a place that was trumpeted as not democratic particularly, but a place where development was going very well. We know that assessment was not accurate, was not the complete picture. I think the argument today from people who draw questions about development in Rwanda is that argument still doesn't apply, that we still have to qualify it because the human rights situation there is troubling, to say the least. What the book does is present the situation on the ground for ordinary young people in Rwanda, in rural areas, in the capital, which is one of the fastest growing cities in the world. What's going on? What are their priorities? What are their perspectives? What's their life like? How do they see Rwanda and their situation in it? And that's what we focus on in the book. That's what it's about. And then I draw implications of those findings. And Rwanda has one of the youngest populations in the world. I think it's 75% of the population is under age 30. So we're talking about an exceptionally young country, and we're talking about interviewing people who are part of that very young cohort. Some of the key findings are the difficulty of youth to become adults. The prerequisite for male youth to become a man is the first thing you have to do is to build a house. What we found in our research is that there is a severe housing crisis in rural Rwanda and urban Rwanda, and that government regulations are helping to make this situation very significant. I mean, making it's a crisis. What this means, who does the crisis affect? More than anybody else, it affects youth, because male youth aren't able to build a house, most of them. It's very difficult. In our research, it was unlikely that many of them were going to be able to achieve that prerequisite. What does this mean for young people? It means that a female youth can't become a woman unless she has someone to marry. And if a male youth can't finish his house, who's she going to marry? So what this means is that Rwanda's facing a situation where almost an entire generation of Rwandans the prospect is that they're going to be failed adults. It's a very serious situation. Two policy responses. One is that there has to be a way found to help male youth build a house. If you do that, then you help female youth also become adults. You help both, which means that there has to be a serious thinking about this very ambitious housing policy of the government. The findings are very clear about this. There is a housing emergency, and it's exacerbated by the policies of the government. So that has to be looked at. That's number one. And that's focused in rural and urban Rwanda. In addition, there are very severe constraints on informal market activities, petty trading, shall we say. And this is one of the main economic options that male and female youth have in the capital, and it's severely restricted, which economically is really, from what we found, really endangers the situation of a lot of youth. So it's those two policies that need to be looked at very carefully, and I think the research is clear that they need to be reformed. Both of them need to be loosened so that more economic trade is possible for people, for traders in the capital, and it's easier to build a house.